Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Matchroom promoter and boss Eddie Hearn has attempted to explain Anthony Joshua's behaviour post-fight with his own post on social media. So what we'll do is we'll go through that, a few thoughts, and then potentially the what next, because Joshua after the fight has talked about returning by the end of the year. So we'll talk on that, because who's he going to face? A couple of options come to mind, but really it could be anyone. But first, what I want to do is just go over what happened after the fight, because in some ways that's overshadowed the win for Usyk to some extent, and it's become a major talking point because it was a pretty bizarre and mad sort of rant from Anthony Joshua. And to recap, so he was heading out of the arena. He was pretty much all the way to the sort of immediate exit, getting out of the arena, but then got a little bit aggro, turned around, made a beeline to the ring. Goes up to Usyk. I haven't got all the sort of quotes there, but I did pick up that he said, "You're not strong. How did you beat me? I've got character." And there was a little bit more. Then he snatches Usyk's flag. He goes on a bit of a rant about his backstory, you know, having youth and crime in 2 weeks and blah, blah, all these sorts of things, dropping multiple F-bombs along the way, which culturally not a good thing to do in Saudi Arabia. Goes on about not being a 12-round fighter and mentions some fighters of yesteryear and other bits and pieces. Then he sets off a wave of 3 cheers. He then speaks of the situation in Ukraine and describing it as not nice. So having watched it back again to try to get a better feel of the sequence, and it was still really bad, and I felt bad for Joshua, and I was really wondering about his state of mind at the time. He should not have been allowed to go back and do that, and I'm sure at this point, you know, or after and maybe in the days to come, he'll reflect on some of that. And Eddie Hearn coming out trying to do a little bit of damage control, and I guess justifiably so, because he's looking at his cash cow, one of the biggest fighters in his stable, who's just had a bit of a meltdown in front of millions and millions of people around the world who were watching. And it has become a major talking point, and there's been, you know, embarrassing, the word was trending on Twitter in reference to Joshua. It's not, you know, every man and his dog has come out and said something about it on social media that has an account and decided, yeah, what did I just see there? Because it was strange. So Anthony Joshua, or should I say Eddie Hearn of Anthony Joshua, says, "I can't tell you how proud I am of Anthony Joshua. I can't tell you how much he wanted to win last night. I can't tell you how hard he tried. Don't be deceived by a brave face or a strong frame. This man has always been under pressure and has given so much to British boxing. The emotion last night was that of a devastated man, and maybe all those years of pressure finally showed. I'm excited for the future, excited for him to be free of belts for now, free of mandatories, and just get active, improve, express himself in and out of the ring, and above all, be happy. Here's to the next chapter." Eddie Hearn there, and I think he raises a few different points that are worth sort of talking about, and I do think he's been a great servant to boxing in general. At a time when he was coming up, you know, it was a little bit mundane. The heavyweight division, it wasn't always sort of looked upon by fans as a division that, you know, that should be talked about. It, the sort of some of the luster had sort of gone out of it. He, along with the likes of Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury, and some others in recent years, have really brought a spotlight back to it. Joshua in particular has brought a lot of money and eyeballs back to the heavyweight division. He has been in exciting fights, and even in this fight, which I actually think people are sort of not giving him enough credit, because I think it was a better performance. He performed better, but ultimately he still couldn't outbox Usyk. But probably in the scheme of things of his career, in terms of what he was doing, one of the better boxing efforts in terms of, you know, his skills and his development, his progression. But, you know, coming up against one of the best in the game right now, and that's in any division, Oleksandr Uysk, it's a tough ask. But good servant to the sport. He's brought a lot of money into it. And was this the pressure catching up with him, as Eddie Hearn has alluded to? Well, it could be. It could be. Maybe the pressure finally did show. It kind of looked like some sort of snap moment when, with all these sort of mad things that happened that was going on. And, you might have seen Usyk snatching the flag back off him during mid-rant. So there is optimism, I think, for Anthony Joshua in the way that he performed, and that he can still be a top heavyweight. He is still a top heavyweight. Just because he lost to Usyk doesn't mean that he's not a good fighter. And if you really think that, then I guess you're giving Oleksandr Uysk no credit. Joshua is still in his prime. He can still be in some big fights. He can still, depending on different matchups, get some very good wins in the heavyweight division. And if the no-belt situation that Hearn refers to and said that he's excited for him to be free of belts, if that means that Joshua's going to get more active and he is going to be in the ring more often, as sort of Hearn is alluding to, then that's also got to be a good thing. Joshua has become a bit of a shadow of himself in terms of the amount of times that he fights. The last few years, it's once a year. Twice a year if you're lucky. So the last 4 or 5 years, he's barely fought. And part of that has been some of these ridiculously long training camps that he does have, but also, trying to tie guys down to these big fights hasn't always been easy. There's the pandemic to throw in there as well. That's disrupted a lot of things. So if Joshua is going to be out again, and what is it now, near the end of August, if he's out by the end of the year, that's actually a good thing. But, I think what Hearn says about a devastated man, I think we saw that. He was unraveling in front of our eyes. And I guess after all these years, all the pressure, and he's just lost 2 on the bounce, maybe that was more of the true Joshua expressing himself. Always has been criticized for being a robot, a guy that's media trained to within an inch of his life and not expressing any emotion. But I guess once that geyser burst, it really he went off there. But he is talking about coming back and being out again by the end of the year. I'm a fighter for life, and this is another post from Matchroom's Instagram. The hunger never dies. I want to be back out in November or December. And if he is out again by the end of this year, that's a good thing. And I hope if he is going to keep Robert Garcia in the camp, and that they do have, a plan to try to improve, and there's some things that they want to embed in, I think that's a good story if he is. But I mean, one of the things that I do think is kind of this whole dual coaching with Angel Fernandez and also Robert Garcia now. I kind of think the one voice is better. This whole sort of camp where everyone's got these different roles in their sort of 1A, 1B, I'm not sure it works. I think Robert Garcia is the better trainer, and it's not to say that Angel Fernandez is not a good trainer, but we've already seen what Fernandez brings. He was the architect of the Andy Ruiz performance. He's been in the camp for a couple of years. Maybe it's time to just solely focus on Robert Garcia and see what he can do for Anthony Joshua. But is a Dillian Whyte fight potentially coming? I mean, I think at some point, maybe not next, but probably in the next year or so. Remembering as well that Anthony Joshua just recently signed this mega deal with DAZN where he gets a part of the company, rumoured to be 100 million or 150 million, whatever it is. He's got some sort of ambassadorships once he finishes, and he's going to get paid for a long time now. So you have a situation, if you can hear the rain in the background, apologies for that, just started bucketing down. But they need to be getting Joshua out regular and getting some shows, getting some bang for buck. So if he's out again and he continues to be active and fighting more than once a year at least, fighting more than twice a year, he should be out at least 3 times a year. And if Whyte is a fight within the next year, that's not bad. Whyte currently waiting for a fight says, and actually this is a clip from his Instagram story.
Waiting to get a name and an opponent. Date and opponent, I mean. But we're good. We're taking over.
Another guy that they could look to maybe sort of come back against as a rebuild opponent, maybe Zhang Jilei. He put up a really credible performance against Filip Hrgović and was unlucky not to get the decision. And this is his post on having lost to Hrgović, saying, "I had a good time tonight. How about you? I enjoyed the journey and congrats to Filip. I will be back. #boxing, #life." And that's given the circumstances, and a lot of people thought that he won that fight. That's a really measured post by Zhang. He's probably privately seething. But Matchroom has always talked about China. They've talked about Zhang. There's always been some sort of end game with having Zhang in their stable. Would it be or could they put a fight in China with Joshua and Zhang? And given the strength of what we saw from Zhang against Hrgovic, he's not going to be a pushover. Joshua would have to work for the win. There will be other names. I'm sure there will be a lot of people clamoring to face Anthony Joshua because he will still bring eyeballs. He will still bring money into the sport because he's always going to be a big name. He's achieved a lot in this sport. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. Boxing_squared. I'm out.